Hello everybody, my name is James, hope you're doing well and welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be talking about a punishment that's been issued to Mercedes, as well as a key decision that's been made on Aston Martin. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more Formula 1 content. Also make sure to follow me on Instagram and X at James's Pit Lane. I'll leave links in the description, but let's jump straight into the video. Now, in qualifying for the Melbourne Grand Prix, there were three drivers who did not set a time, those being Williams' Carlos Sainz, Red Bull's Max Verstappen, and Aston Martin's Lance Stroll, and as a result, each of the drivers did not meet the 107% threshold to compete in the Australian Grand Prix on Sunday. However, in terms of Verstappen and Sainz, their times were very competitive in practice, and as a result, they definitely are allowed to compete in the Australian Grand Prix. It was just a formality to ask for permission. However, the case is not so clear when it comes to Lance Stroll. Basically, Stroll has barely been able to run at the Australian Grand Prix weekend because of Aston Martin's highly publicised problems with the Honda power unit, and Stroll actually fell short of the required 107% lap time threshold in every session. Basically, his tally of laps for the weekend stands at 16, none of them on Saturday, and his best lap was 7 seconds slower than George Russell's eventual pole time. Now, Stroll has received permission to compete at the Australian Grand Prix. However, apparently it did require a compelling case from Aston Martin for Stroll to compete on Sunday. According to the Stewards, Aston Martin presented a three-part argument for Stroll to be granted the right to start. The first was teammate Fernando Alonso qualifying within the 107% threshold in the more functional of the two Aston Martins. Meanwhile, the second was Stroll's career record in F1, and specifically at Melbourne, which demonstrated significant familiarity with the circuit and its operational requirements, and its 859 kilometers so far this year in the AMR 26. And the third was that the decision not to qualify with Stroll was taken out of prudence and related to a damaged oil line in the car. The problem was simply described as a power unit issue on the ICE side by Honda. So yeah, not such a formality in the case for Stroll. Aston Martin had to put together a proper argument for Stroll to compete at the Australian Grand Prix, but as I say, he has received permission to compete on Sunday. But let's move on to Mercedes, and in Q3 there was an incident involving Kimi Antonelli. Basically, the car was sent out on track with the cooling fan still attached to its side pods, and one ended up on the racing line with McLaren's Lando Norris hitting his front wing on it before a red flag was shown to clear the debris. Now, Antonelli ended up qualifying in P2. However, there was an investigation into this unsafe release, and that meant Antonelli may have not started in P2 for the Grand Prix on Sunday. However, he will keep that P2, with Mercedes escaping a grid penalty, and instead Mercedes were handed a financial penalty of €7,500 for the incident. The steward's verdict said the team explained that an incident in an earlier session in which car 12 had sustained significant damage meant that the division of labour within the team had to be changed to repair the damage within a short time. Usually, a separate team member would have responsibility for inserting and removing each fan, but the need to address legacy issues from the earlier incident during the session meant that the team member responsible for the fan on that side of the car was occupied on another task, and the removal of the fan before the car was released from the garage was missing. The team and the driver were unaware that the fan had not been removed until the incident was noted by race control. The stewards determined that because car 12 left its garage with a piece of equipment still attached, it was released in an unsafe condition, and the stewards imposed a fine on the competitor accordingly. But that's going to be the video from me today. Thank you ever so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe for more videos, and until the next one, take care. Bye.